You know, when we talk about the great villains of mythology, there are a few names that always pop up. And in Southeast Asian folklore, one giant, well, he literally towers over all of them. Totsakan, the 10-faced demon king. But what if I told you that his story isn't just about pure evil? What if it's actually a tragic fairy tale that kicks off with weakness, bullying, and a whole lot of tears? Okay, let's get into it.
So, in the Ramakien, which is the Thai national epic, Totsakan is the bad guy, no question. He's this being of incredible power, the king of Lanka and the arch-nemesis of the hero, Fra Ram. I mean, he is the very definition of a larger-than-life villain. But here's the thing, right? Every great villain has an origin story. And Totsakan's is honestly one of the most compelling and heartbreaking you'll ever hear. To really understand the ten-headed king, you first have to know the story of a humble, forgotten giant named Nantok.
Our story doesn't start in some big, scary palace. Nope, we're starting at the foot of the heavens. This is where we meet Totsakan in his past life. And believe me, it's a story born not from power, but from some really deep pain and humiliation.
See, Nantok was a low-ranking yaksha, kind of a nature spirit. And his one job, and I mean his only job, day in and day out for what felt like forever, was to wash the feet of the gods, the devas, before they went up to see the big boss, Pra-Suwan, also known as Shiva. Talk about a thankless gig.
And it got so much worse. These divine beings, the devas, they treated him like their personal plaything. As he's kneeling there, washing their feet, they would mock him, slap his head around, and yank his hair out just for fun. This happened day after day, until the top of his head was completely, painfully bald. Can you just imagine that? The stories say he would look at his own reflection in the dirty wash water and just weep. The sheer helplessness, the shame, all of that constant abuse planted a dark seed of resentment that was about to grow into full-blown vengeance. So finally, after an eternity of this suffering, Nantok's sorrow just turns into steel. He's done crying. He marches right up to the highest authority, Fra-Suwan himself, to ask for a gift. And he's not asking for respect or a better job. He's asking for power. And get this, what he asks for is so specific. He wants a single, devastatingly powerful weapon, a diamond finger that could kill anyone he pointed it at, instantly. And Fra-Suwan, feeling sorry for Nantok after all his years of thankless service, actually says yes. He grants the wish, having absolutely no idea the horror he's just set in motion.
So the very next day, when the devas come down and start their usual routine of tormenting him, Nantok doesn't cry. He doesn't even flinch. He just stands up, raises his hand, and points his new diamond finger.
The result was immediate, and it was catastrophic. He pointed and gods fell. One by one, his old bullies were just gone. The victim, now armed with absolute power, became an unstoppable killer, turning the base of that sacred mountain into a graveyard.
Well, you can imagine that word of this chaos got back to Fra-Suwan pretty fast, and he was horrified. He had tried to give power to the powerless, and instead, he'd accidentally created a monster. So he immediately calls in his top enforcer, the great god Pra-Narai, or Vishnu, to go put a stop to Nantok's rampage.
But Pra-Narai is smart. He knows Nantok is just drunk on this newfound power and rage. So instead of meeting him with brute force, he uses his wits. He transforms himself into a stunningly beautiful Apsara, a celestial dancer, and appears right in Nantok's path.
Nantok is immediately captivated. He totally forgets his rage and tries to woo this beautiful dancer. The Apsara, who is secretly Pra-Narai, plays along and challenges him. If he can perfectly copy all of her dance moves, she'll be his. Blinded by lust and pride, Nantok agrees. They dance move for move, until the Apsara strikes a very specific pose called Naga coils its tail, a move that forces Nantok to point his finger down at his own leg.
And in a flash, his own power strikes him, shattering his leg. As he collapses, the Apsara transforms back into the four-armed Fra-Narai, who places a foot on his chest. Defeated, Nantok screams his last defiant words, accusing Fra-Narai of being a coward, of using a trick, and his divine advantage of four arms against Nantok's simple two.
And this, right here, is the turning point for the entire epic. Pra-Narai hears this challenge and lays down a curse that will echo through eternity. He essentially says, "Oh, you want a fair fight?
you got it. Go and be reborn with 10 heads and 20 arms. But I will be reborn as a mere human, with only 2 hands, and I will still hunt you down and defeat you. This curse is what sets the entire Ramakien in motion. Nantok is reborn as Totsukan, and Pra-Narai is reborn as Pra-Ram.
But hold on, because that's not the only version of the story. The Thai Ramakien is an adaptation of a much older Indian epic, the Ramayana, and in that telling, the villain's origin is completely different. Let's explore how this changes things.
So the key difference here is the why. In the Thai Ramakien, it's a deeply personal story of revenge. It's a classic tale of an underdog who was pushed way too far. But in the Indian Ramayana, the villain Ravana, Totsukan's counterpart, was originally a celestial gatekeeper who got cursed for being disrespectful. His villainy isn't born from personal suffering. It's part of a grand cosmic plan for him to atone over 3 lifetimes as Vishnu's enemy. So one is a tragedy born from very human-like emotions, while the other is a destiny literally written in the stars.
And this brings us right to the heart of Nantok's tale. It's so much more than just a myth. It's a really powerful look at what it even means to be a villain. And it makes you wonder why this ancient story still resonates so deeply with us.
The story of Nantok is such a timeless, cautionary tale. It shows how unchecked power, even when it's given to someone who seems to deserve it, just leads to ruin. It shows how relentless oppression doesn't just create sadness, it can create absolute monsters. And maybe the scariest lesson of all is seeing how terrifyingly thin that line between victim and villain can be, trapping everyone in this awful cycle where the abused becomes the abuser.
And so, we're left with this question. Was Totaseken's evil just a matter of cosmic fate, like the Ramayana suggests? Or was it forged in the tears of Nantok, a tragic figure created not by destiny, but by the cruelty of others? The fairy tale of Nantok suggests that sometimes the monsters we fear the most are the ones we create ourselves.